Here's the opening range recap for Tuesday, November 9th. Crazy day. We'll get into that in a bit. The opening range was very small for all three of the indices that we look at. Dow was only 41 points, which is the second lowest that it's had since we've been tracking the December contract. As we've said in the things to avoid, you want to avoid when the opening range is very small, because what happens is you can go through the opening range really quickly if the market picks up. The opening range for the S&P was 3.5 points, which I'll get to in a second, and the opening range for the NASDAQ, which was 19.25 points, which was the lowest opening range that it has had this entire time of tracking the December contract. So, but we're going to go through all the good, bad, ugly, and we'll show it to you, and you can decide for yourself. But we talk about these are the days to avoid. This particular trade idea works quite well. However, you have to avoid certain days in order to be profitable long term. And this is one of those days. So anyway, this is the Dow, trade number one, a win 25.50. Second trade, win 25, loss 50, and win 25, loss 50, or excuse me, win 50. So there was no trades, most safe trades on the Dow at all for the Dow on today. All right, next let's look at the NASDAQ. NASDAQ had a 19.25 opening range, which means if you are going for a 25%, you're going for 4.75 points, which is less than $100 on the NASDAQ. Like I mentioned before, it is the smallest opening range of the time that we've been tracking this December contract. These are the days you want to avoid, because especially in the NASDAQ, 19 points is nothing. This is a 1 minute chart, and as you can see, this 1 minute right here, even 957, your high was 292, your low was 267, which is what, 25 points in 1 minute. And 2 minutes later, this is a 56 point 1 minute bar. There's no news or anything at this time. So it's a 50 point opening, or a bar for 1 minute, and the opening range was only 19. So these are the type of days to avoid, because the opening range is so small. Your potential profit is small, and you're going to have to win a whole bunch of trades in order for you to make it a worthwhile day. And days like this can happen where the market just falls, and because the opening range is so small, you get smacked around. So if the opening range was more normal, like say 40 points or so, this would have turned out much differently, because you wouldn't have been in so many trades. But the other thing I wanted to show you was, as I mentioned before in some of the additional tips and so forth, things tend to stop in that 6 to 8 pivot range. This particular one stopped at 9. I'll look at the S&P in a little bit, and that was the same thing. And by that I mean within your trading time frames. So these tend to be the stopping points of that. Another aspect is the best trading times to trade is between 10 and 11. All of these trades for the NASDAQ, all 9 of these entries, were before 10 a.m. So you had trade number 1 was at 9:47 a.m. Trade number 9 was at 9:59. So in a 12-minute period, you had 9 different potential trades on the NASDAQ. That is why you need to avoid days like this. It's just, you got to avoid them. And some of the stuff that we talk about in the things to avoid sections of the OPR ebook that'll be coming out soon talks about exactly this type of stuff. So if you're going to avoid days like this, you can do quite well with this trade idea. But otherwise, you'll blow out your account, And if you blow out your account, you're going to have to start over again. And days like this will happen again. And if you're not prepared, or you're not using the correct money management, or you're just not, you should be not trading on days like this when it's this low, and just move on with your day and avoid these days. Some of them will end up being wins, yes, but they're not going to make up for the large losing days as well. So anyway, for the 25%, your first trade number 1 is loss. So your first most safe trade would be here, which would have lost. You would add additional contracts here, which would have lost. If you added additional contracts here, you won and you broke even on that particular thing. 25 here, lost. So your next most safe trade is here, which won, which would have been, like I said, just under 5 points in the NASDAQ, which is about 100 points. Trade 7 lost, so your first or your next most safe trade is here, which lost. You would add additional contracts here and won, so you broke even there. So on the 25, if you wanted to add on that fourth trade, you would have made less than $100 and totally not worth all the heat that you took. If you're trading the 50%, your first trade would be here, which lost. You would add 1 lot or the same number of lots that you're trading on their first trade here, and you won, so you broke even there. Then a loss. So your next trade here would be here. Loss, you add 1 here, and you add additional 2 here, and you broke even. But again, ton of heat, totally not worth it, and not worth it. So you can blow out your account quite easy in this, and we'll talk about that in just a second. ES had 8 trades. Again, this first trade here, or the 8th trade here, is the only one after 10 a.m. and it's actually obviously a winner. But first trade here is a loss or excuse me, a win on the 25, a loss on the 50. It actually missed the 50 by a tick. So, but officially that's how we count it. So it's a loss. Second trade was a win for the 25, and then you get a loss. You added 1 here, or excuse me, that would be your first most safe here, the trade number 4 if you're trading the 25, which you should not trade the 25 or the 50 for that matter, especially when the opening range is less than 4. You're going for 3/4 of 1 point. So you're going for 37.50 on a 1 lot. You're going for $37.50 profit on the S&P. That's insane, because you're risking so much for so little, and that's why I do not trade less than 4 on the S&P. When the S&P is less than 4 opening range, I do not trade. The risk reward is just way too out of whack for it. But if you were trading, you shouldn't be, but if you were trading, the trade number 4 would be your first most safe trade. Didn't win, so you'd add here. Didn't win, you'd add here if you needed to. Trade 7 won. Trade 8 won. 50%ers, loss. So first trade here, you actually had 6 50% losers in a row. The first 6 trades for the 50% were losers. Trade 7 and trade 8 were winners. And you got your 100% move up here after trade number 7, what we talked about as well. But also your sweet spots are after 10 o'clock. This technically, the trade number 8 would not have been a most safe trade at all, but that is your first actual trade after 10 o'clock, and it was a winning trade. So I'm counting today's action. A, you shouldn't have traded it, but B, if you did, it's a blowout. So you will see on the blog post a blowout. So however you want to consider a blowout, if that's $3,000 for you or $10,000 or whatever the number is, blowout, and go from there on however you want to do it. You need to avoid days like this. If you avoid days like this, you can do well. If you do not, you will blow out account after account after account after account. So check out the things to avoid, and avoid those things, or best as possible. Obviously, things can happen where you have a normal opening range, and then there's some wild news and whatever happens, and that's all possible. But if you can avoid blowing out your account in one day, you can do potentially okay with this trade idea. But you have to avoid those days. So hopefully it's helpful. If you have any questions, drop me an email or comment, and I will talk to you tomorrow. Take care.